What if I told you the absolute greatest prison you will ever face doesn't actually have iron bars? It isn't poverty, it isn't failure, and it's not even clinical depression. I mean, just look at our world right now. We've literally got more modern comfort at our fingertips than at any other point in human history, right? Yet, depression is steadily climbing, anxiety is just everywhere, and honestly, a lot of us feel emptier than ever. So we really need to take a step back and totally reconsider what being captive actually means. Because here's the thing. The greatest prison is a mind that cannot make peace with itself. Think about it. We're living in this society where we are constantly chasing after success, perfect relationships, social media likes, and more money. We're basically running on this endless treadmill, totally convinced that the next milestone is going to be the one that finally brings us peace. But we just end up feeling completely incomplete. So, to really understand this modern psychological crisis we're all dealing with, we're going to dive into an explainer on a man who literally stared down a firing squad nearly 200 years ago. Yep, we're talking about Fyodor Dostoevsky. His deep dive into guilt, ego, freedom, and suffering, it honestly feels frighteningly relevant today. We're not just doing a history lesson here. We are going to figure out how to finally break free. All right, let's jump straight into part one, the prison of the mind. Now, Dostoevsky wasn't just some famous novelist. The guy was an absolute explorer of the human soul. Unlike other philosophers back then who were just talking abstractly about perfect societies, he asked the really uncomfortable questions. He wanted to know exactly why highly intelligent, successful people still make choices that actively sabotage them. Born in Russia in 1821, his youth was hit hard by tragic losses, including the mysterious death of his father. Fast forward to adulthood, he gets arrested simply for discussing political ideas. And then happens the absolute unthinkable. He is sentenced to death. Imagine just standing there, waiting for the bullets to hit. But at the absolute final second, a messenger rides in. He's pardoned right there at the firing squad. Instead of dying, he gets sent away to spend years in brutal Siberian prison camps. Most people, they'd let that completely break them. But for Dostoevsky, surviving a near execution in Siberia completely flipped his entire worldview upside down. And his time in that prison taught him this incredibly profound lesson. He realized human beings are never just one simple thing. We're walking contradictions. He saw firsthand that inside every hardened criminal, there is still humanity. And inside every revered saint, there is still a massive capacity for evil. The line between good and evil, it cuts straight through every single human heart. Which brings us right to part two, the battle inside you. This ancient insight from a 19th century prison camp actually perfectly describes the inner conflict every single one of us deals with every day. Just think about your own morning routine. One part of your brain goes, all right, wake up at 5 a.m., let's crush the day. And the other part just whispers, 5 more minutes. We all know that inner voice that somehow wins Olympic gold in procrastination, right? It's kind of funny because it's universally true, representing our deeply divided human nature. One side wants to diligently save money for the future, while the other side desperately wants that shiny new phone right this second. And what's wild is that modern neuroscience perfectly backs up these ancient philosophies. On one side of your head, you've got the prefrontal cortex. That's the manager handling long-term consequences and rational planning. On the other side is the emotional brain, just screaming for an immediate reward. This beautifully mirrors Plato's old idea of a chariot being pulled by 2 totally opposing horses, or even Buddhism's teachings on craving. It just proves that the absolute greatest war in history has never been between nations. It's always been right inside the human heart. Let's move on to part 3, finding meaning in pain. So Dostoevsky introduced this highly controversial idea. He argued that while pain is absolutely unavoidable in life, meaning is completely optional. Now, he never glorified suffering, not at all, but he deeply recognized its power to transform us. Imagine 2 people lose their jobs on the exact same day, exact same painful event. But person A might spend years blaming the whole world and spiraling into bitterness, while person B uses it as a spark to learn new skills and build their own business. Through cognitive reframing, they are literally rewiring their brain through their repeated thoughts, which fundamentally changes the neural impact of that event. You actually see this concept echoed all over the world. Take the beautiful Japanese art of kintsugi, for example, where broken pottery is repaired with gold to make it even more stunning than before. It's just like how your muscles can only grow stronger after sustaining tiny, microscopic tears at the gym, or how stars absolutely require the pitch darkness of night just to be visible. Personal growth almost always demands some level of discomfort. Simply put, you just cannot have spring without enduring the winter first. Which leads us to part 4, the trap of absolute freedom. Today, it feels like everyone wants the absolute freedom to do anything, say anything, and be anything at any given moment. But we really need to ask a brilliant, challenging question here. Can unlimited freedom actually end up destroying us? Think about it. Imagine giving a kid unlimited candy, completely unlimited screen time, and absolutely no bedtime. We'd never give a child 0 rules because we know for a fact it would lead to total, inevitable chaos in about 3 days. Yet for some reason, as adults, we constantly confuse true freedom with a total lack of discipline. We fall into the trap of thinking true freedom is just doing whatever the heck we feel like doing in the moment. But here's the reality. Every repeated action you take strengthens your neural pathways until, eventually, your habits stop asking for your permission. You quite literally become what you repeatedly do. So, freedom without responsibility, that just becomes an addiction. True freedom, freedom with responsibility, is what actually becomes mastery. Let's dive into part 5, your internal moral compass. Reality is deeply complicated. Ordinary, everyday people carry both incredible courage and the capacity for extraordinary cruelty at the exact same time. It helps to think of your mind kind of like a garden. If you completely ignore a garden, weeds are going to grow automatically, right? You don't have to try to grow them. The darkness of selfishness and cruelty works exactly like that. But if you actively tend the soil, the beautiful flowers of compassion and courage start to appear through tiny, deliberate daily choices. You don't sit around blaming the weeds. You just have to keep tending the soil. Dostoevsky explored this perfectly in his famous masterpiece, Crime and Punishment. The main character commits a completely terrible crime because he genuinely believes he's intellectually superior and just above the rules. But what actually happens? He manages to completely escape any police consequences. Yet his own conscience absolutely destroys him from the inside out. His inner guilt ends up becoming a far worse prison than any physical cell the police could have ever locked him in. And we see this all the time today, don't we? Countless highly successful people remain totally haunted by regret because, at the end of the day, money cannot silence guilt, and luxury cannot purchase peace. Real peace only comes from integrity. When your actions finally align with your values, your mind gets lighter, and compassion becomes your literal path to genuine redemption. Finally, we arrive at part 6, the Dostoevsky method. So how do we actually apply these incredible 19th century philosophical ideas to our fast-paced modern lives to finally find that peace? Well, it really comes down to a highly practical 5-step framework that guides us from basic awareness all the way up to serious psychological resilience. First up, you have to observe your inner dialogue, because awareness always has to precede change. Second, accept your shadow. Just stop pretending you're perfect. Third, give actual meaning to your pain by asking yourself what it's trying to teach you. Fourth, practice daily responsibility to literally reshape the neural pathways in your brain. And fifth, actively, consciously choose compassion every day. Dostoevsky knew deep down that the ultimate battle isn't between East and West or the rich and the poor. The deepest battle is happening between selfishness and love, right inside every single one of us. So we really have to ask ourselves, what if the overarching goal of life isn't just about endlessly avoiding suffering, but actually allowing it to transform us into wiser, kinder human beings? Because as his truly remarkable life proved, the darkest night can indeed become the beginning of the brightest morning. Your greatest victory in life isn't going to be about defeating other people. It's about mastering the contradictions within yourself. So if your mind is the ultimate prison, you have to ask yourself, who's the one holding the key?